You ready to go? Ready? Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sunspot Live. I'm Scott Brooks, your host. Thank you for being here. This is our seventh show. It just seems like we started yesterday, but we have had 7 of these shows, and I've enjoyed every one of them. Hope that you have as well. Today, it's just me, but there are several things I'd like to talk to you about, and I'll give you just a brief description of those. I want to talk about, for local folks, I want to talk about the idea of endorsing candidates. I'll make it brief. I don't want to bore anybody, but tomorrow's Waxahachie Sun, I do offer 2 endorsements for 2 races, and look forward to what our readers have to say about that. I also want to take a minute or two to read something to you about echo chambers. I'm going to talk a little bit about echo chambers and what it's doing to society today. I also want to share with you a couple of stories that I think, particularly one of them, will blow your mind. The other one is more or less a just be careful kind of thing, because there's so much activity and talk about the subject. I'm going to share with you, I think most of, if not everybody listening or watching, will have at some point either seen a commercial about it or talked about it or heard about it. So I want to share with you that topic here in just a minute. I want to remind you that our purpose really for doing this is because, in essence, I want us to be a beast for good. As much as many and as much is going on, many people in this society, and as hard as they work at forces that aren't really good, in many cases evil, trying to change society, trying to denigrate society, trying to just open up a free-for-all, busting out boundaries. If we don't do something, then we really are gonna have a free-for-all, and that's what this show is about. Is to say, here's an example of what's going on. We want to be a beast for good, and this is what it means to be a beast for good. So that's really what we're trying to achieve here, and I'm going to mention that every show we have. Today, I'm also going to tease you with a giveaway that's coming up, not this Thursday, but a week from Thursday. We're going to have a really cool giveaway, and that cool giveaway is 2 tickets, front row seats to see Michael Martin Murphy here at the Texas Theater. For those of you that live in Ellis County or North Texas, if you haven't been to the Texas Theater, it's quite the venue. It's been renovated. It's seen a few concerts there. Just saw the Bellamy Brothers on New Year's Eve. It was a blast, and I want to be able to provide those of you who are interested in an opportunity to go. So we'll be giving away 2 front row tickets, and I'm talking, 5 feet from where Michael Martin Murphy and his band will be on March the 15th. So I'll talk about that in just a little bit more. I want to end today's show with kind of just a general discussion about the interviews with Brandon Bieber, and so much has transpired since then. So many comments, hundreds and hundreds of comments have come really across the spectrum of platforms, including my email, my phone with text, and I don't know how people got my phone number, but it's all right by me, and phone calls to the Waxahachie Sun. It is really amazing how much interest has spiked there, including, if you haven't seen it, an interview on. Oh, good idea. I forgot my mic. I'm sorry. Don't look at me like that. Anyway, so I want to talk to you about some of that, but I also want to, let you know about the NBC5 interview. So today I want to just share with you. We've got 2 in Waxahachie and other parts of the country as well. We have races, campaigns, public offices, elected offices that have primaries and then a general election. That would include commissioners, district attorney, judges, propositions that are on the ballot. So there are a number of offices that follow the presidential pattern or sequential order of voting. So the primary is done in the spring, and then the general election is in One, two, hang on, y'all. We never hit start, did we? Oh, hang on, Instagram friends. Give us just a second here. There we go.
There we go. Say hello again. Quick mission statement. Go back in.
Hi, Instagram. Sorry about that. We're learning and almost so close to getting there in terms of just fluidity and having it all down pat. But there's the presidential pattern or schedule of elections, and then no sooner than we're done with those, then we have local elections that involve school board members, city council, and the like that don't have primaries. They don't have the general election. Their general election is in May, not November, and as I just said, they don't have primaries. So with respect to local endorsements, it's okay. So we have these two different election cycles, which means a year like, well, not every year, but a year like now, we have a lot of election politics, that sort of thing going on in our community. So as with most every reputable newspaper, there are endorsements. I'm going to be endorsing, just finished the column today and am endorsing two candidates. I'm looking forward to the results of those endorsements. You know, not every endorsement means somebody's going to win or somebody's going to lose in terms of who I'm choosing or who I'm endorsing, and I recognize that. So we'll just have to see what happens with these endorsements. But I'm confident, I'm happy, I'm eager to get those endorsements out and then see what happens. For those of you that are local and follow that and see those endorsements, feel free to let me know what you think. I'm more than happy to entertain your ideas and your notions and your thoughts. So please let me know what you think. Thank you for joining in. A number of people are here. I want to be able to get to my little thing over here where I can follow better. Hi, Jana. It's good to have you. And others I can see from Instagram. Thank you for joining. And please, to win not every show, but in the shows where we give away something, you got to share, follow, comment, that kind of thing. And I'll change it up in most every show, really what you got to do. But it usually be along the lines of what was your favorite segment and that kind of thing. So endorsements, our newspapers must endorse people. There's some out there who believe newspapers shouldn't be messing with endorsing candidates. I couldn't disagree more. As a man that's been in newspapers since the 80s, you hear about endorsements. The value of endorsing is important. I've done my homework, whereas many people who read the endorsement have no homework to rely upon, if not for the endorsement. So, why not? And it helps people with civic engagement, with understanding candidates, the issues, and every cycle I get asked about those things. And I'm happy to do the legwork and the research so that you don't have to. So I wanted you to be aware of that. I want to read something to you. It's going to take a couple of minutes here, but I want to read this to you and see if it makes any sense to you. I'm not going to show it to you because the words are too long, but I mean too small. But I want you to be able to at least get a sense of what's going on in society with respect to echo chambers. And once you hear this, you'll understand what an echo chamber is if you don't already know, and you'll hopefully weigh in and tell me what you think about it. This is a column that I wrote, and I'm just going to read it verbatim. As I share some thoughts with you today regarding what I believe to be one of the more dangerous behavioral characteristics afflicting people today, especially those in elected office, I ask you to consider the affliction from a local perspective. It is true, after all, that the innumerable examples of the same conduct we see each day on a national level is often proportionately the same as what's happening in communities across America, including Waxahachie. So I make the claim that what's going on in D.C., if we pay close attention, we'll see some element of that going on in our local governments, our state governments, and we need to be aware of that. D.C. seems far away, and those people are doing things that we don't think impact us. Yet on the local level, there are people doing the same sorts of things. So I want to highlight that to you. That said, within the landscape of ideas, opinions, and beliefs, there exists a phenomenon known as echo chambers, where individuals surround themselves with like minded people and consume information that reinforces their existing views, truth, facts, and reality notwithstanding. Just with the Brandon Beavers uh, story, the Misty Beaver story, and the interviews we did recently. And I'm going to share with some actual echo chambers here with you in just a few minutes. But the echo chambers are where people get together and believe, because of the chambers and the echoes, that what they're doing is right, good, healthy, moral, uh, that it's moving the progress, and yet, because everybody's thinking the same way and the same thing, nobody's there to say, hang on a second, maybe we're not. Uh, Perfect example is the Missy Beavers uh, case, and the comments in stuff that have been said now for 6.5, 7 years, some of which I'm going to share in just a minute. While seeking validation and solidarity is a natural human tendency, the dangers of residing within these echo chambers are profound and far reaching. In an era dominated by social media, algorithms, and polarizing rhetoric, the need to break free from these echo chambers has never been more pressing. Echo chambers, both online and offline, create a breeding ground for what you might call confirmation bias, where individuals selectively seek out information that aligns with their preconceived notions while dismissing contradictory evidence. Again, you may be in a number of echo chambers, but it's simple for me. If I want just affirmation about my political views, about my moral views, about uh, my social views, I'm of the mindset that I need to go hear differing opinions, differing ideas, opposing views, so that I can see it better, to better understand uh, the whole picture as opposed to just my small piece of the picture. If I really wanted just to feel better about what I was thinking and saying, then I'd go into an echo chamber that only agrees with what I'm thinking and saying. It's dangerous, and sadly, we see it happening in Washington D.C. in politics every second of the day. That's why we're separated today as we've ever been in terms of a country in so many different areas. Echo chamber, so they create a breeding ground for what you might call confirmation bias. This selective exposure leads to a reinforcement of existing beliefs, contributing to the entrenchment of polarized ideologies and a breakdown in civil discourse. When individuals are shielded from opposing, listen to this, when individuals are shielded from opposing perspectives, they become less tolerant of differing views and more susceptible to misinformation and propaganda. So if a echo chamber that I go into so as to get affirmation or confirmation of what I think, despite the truth, despite empirical evidence, despite despite what reality is, then I'm just going to be living a life based on false information. Echo chambers also foster a sense of intellectual laziness, where individuals are less inclined to critically evaluate their own beliefs or engage in meaningful debate. In the absence of diverse perspectives, there is a stagnation of ideas, hindering innovation and progress. The reluctance to challenge one's own assumption and engage in constructive dialogue stunts personal growth and inhibits the development of well-rounded worldview. Evidence of this is everywhere, and it is. One of the most insidious effects of echo chambers is the erosion of empathy and understanding towards those with dissimilar viewpoints. When individuals are constantly surrounded by like-minded individuals, they are less likely to empathize with the experience and perspective of others. This lack of empathy fuels societal division and undermines efforts to foster mutual respect and cooperation. Evidence of this is everywhere as well. The proliferation of echo chambers is exacerbated by algorithms used by social media platforms which prioritize content based on user engagement and preferences. If you've never seen Social Dilemma, it's an excellent hour and a half of your time to watch. It's a documentary on what the purpose behind the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, all of them, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, whatever else is out there.
what the purpose is. And the purpose is what part of the purpose, big part of the purpose is what I just read to you. As a result, users are bombarded with content. I may have just read this, but that aligns with their existing beliefs, creating a feedback loop that reinforces ideological divides. You never get anything other than what you agree with. The echo chambers created by social media not only isolate individuals within their own ideological bubbles, but also exacerbate polarization on a societal level. Breaking free from echo chambers requires a conscious effort to seek out diverse perspectives and engage in open-minded dialogue. It requires humility to recognize the limitations of one's own perspective and a willingness to challenge deeply held beliefs. By exposing oneself to a variety of viewpoints, individuals can cultivate empathy, critical thinking skills, and intellectual humility. One of the most effective ways to break out of echo chambers is through exposure to diverse sources of information. This may involve actively seeking out news sources with differing political perspectives, engaging with individuals from diverse backgrounds, or participating in discussions with people who hold opposing views. I don't know if you ever do this, but I certainly, as a conservative, will sit down and watch liberal-minded, liberal-focused television programs so as to know what's being said, to know what the opposing views are, and see if that makes any difference in how I see things. And while my basic tenets of belief haven't changed, there are some things that I've shifted on because I stopped to understand the other views and studied them myself. My kids, I demand of my kids that they understand the other side so that they can see the whole picture. They can use the truth, facts, to be able to come to their own conclusions. Fostering environments that encourage constructive dialogue and debate is essential for combating the spread of echo chambers. This involves creating spaces where individuals feel comfortable expressing diverse viewpoints without fear of ridicule or ostracism. It requires cultivating a culture of intellectual curiosity and respect for differing opinions where the goal is not to win arguments, but to seek mutual understanding and truth. Ultimately, breaking free from echo chambers requires a collective effort to prioritize intellectual diversity, empathy, and open-mindedness. It requires recognizing the dangers of ideological isolation and actively seeking out opportunities to engage with perspectives that challenge our own. As it relates to Waxahachie, a few of our local elected officials and aspiring candidates sit smack dab in the middle of their own nasty echo chamber. In many cases, these chambers are loaded with gossip, undue criticism of innocent people, vicious and unhinged attacks, and an unacceptable degree of bullying people. Ironically, some participants in these echo chambers are the most sensitive among us and play the victim card every chance they get. To that end, and I go on to talk about these endorsements. So I wanted to share that with you in hopes that as we talk about various issues, I'm going to share with you in just a minute things about transgender women in this case. And yet, I want to share with you the story. You can decide what you think about the story. But what about those echo chambers that are convinced men can get pregnant? I saw a story today that said breast milk from transgendered women, that is, men who were biological at birth, now have gone through the transgender process and are women, that their breast milk is as good and as safe as biological women. That's absurd. It doesn't matter to me who you are. That's absurd on every front. It's also offensive in some ways. But echo chambers allow that to grow. So as we do this, as we speak right now, there are countless echo chambers out there that are people talking amongst each other who see it the same way and who are convinced that that's true, that men can get pregnant, that men can ultimately produce breast milk that's as healthy for a child as a biological woman. And the list goes on of things that are just fortified and magnified because of echo chambers. So I wanted to just give you a sense of that. And again, we're going to close up here in a little bit with more comments about and discussion about Brandon Beavers and that interview and Missy Beaver's story. And you'll get a sense of what the echo chambers are doing in that example. Let me see here. I wanted to read something from Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. I like your format, and I'm sure everyone has opinions on Brandon Beavers coming on to tell a story. Let me just see here. So I may read that when we get to the comments here in just a minute. But thank you, Cindy, for following and providing your comments. And for those of you still joining, thank you, Jordan, Big Enchilada, Margot Caps. Thank you. And so some of these are Stephen. So again, thank you for joining. I really appreciate your thoughts and opinions and your loyalty or support. So let me share this with you. This is a story that I thought you would find super, I guess you could say super interesting. I find it interesting, and I thought you would too. So let me get to my screen. So let me show you. This is a story, as I just mentioned. Where did it go? Well, it looks like the story disappeared. So let me find it again real quick. It is right here. This is a story, as you can see, I believe you can see, high school basketball player who identifies as girl accused of causing injuries in a game, so much so that the opponents forfeited. This is a charter school. I believe it's in Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Massachusetts school. So that's the story that I want to share with you. It happened not once, not twice, but 3 times in a game where the biological male transitioning to a woman, bigger, stronger, caused injury to the female members of the female team, so much so that the women's team, the team that he was not on, the opposing team, decided to forfeit. We see that now going on in soccer. We see it going on in some countries in boxing. We see it going on in basketball. We see it going on in swimming. I've talked to you before about Leah Thomas, who's a biological male transitioning to be a woman that wants to be in the Olympics, swim as a female in the Olympics, suing so that can happen. But the sports, it continues to grow in terms of what sports are allowing this to happen. My belief is that it shouldn't happen. I think all of us should have more respect for women's sports than to allow men with stronger muscles, testosterone, even if they're transitioning, higher levels of it, to be in women's sports and win. In many cases, these men, by transitioning to women, are winning. And we saw stories a couple of weeks ago of golf. So you have a golfer who can hit the ball much farther than a woman, ends up winning a tournament and believes that that's something to be proud of. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I can tell you, when my girls were younger, if a biological male was playing in the same sport, in the same game as my daughter and her friends, there would be some serious issues related to that, and I'd do everything I could to stop it. But we're watching the destruction of female sports in America, and we just can't continue. This is a perfect example, and there's video of it. If you want to see it, you can just video the story. It's out of Lowell, Massachusetts, where this young man, again, playing girls basketball because he's transitioning to a woman, hurt his opponents. Just watch the video and you'll get a real sense as to the dangers. Imagine boxing. Imagine UFC. I don't think it'll ever get to that point, but imagine even boxing, where it's being allowed in some countries. It's asinine and not something that we need to sit around and allow to happen. That's why when I say be a beast for good, we ought to do something. I'm not sure what it is to do all the time, but I am sure that we have the capacity to do something with what we have, whether it's write letters, make phone calls, join other groups who are trying to stop these things. It's just we must do something. Otherwise, we're going to lose society. And I think of children, babies being born now, and really what kind of world they're going to enter into if this kind of stuff continues. So I wanted to share that with you. I also want to share with you a story. This is about Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe's about my age, been around for a long, long time. And can we turn the music up? Yes, we can. So let me turn that music up real quick. Hang on, y'all. There we go. That should work. So Rob Lowe now is on. He hosts a show called The Floor. My wife and I watch that. It's pretty fun. Test your knowledge about certain things. But Rob Lowe, there's been lots of stories, lots of commercials, lots of just noise out there about these weight loss drugs, Ozempic, Manjaro, or if that's how you say it, or Jarno. I don't know how to say all these things. The list goes on about these weight loss drugs, so much so that I, who could lose about 15 pounds, reached out to my doctor to talk about this drug, Ozempic or other drugs, the generic versions, that sort of thing. And I don't have diabetes. I'm healthy, that sort of thing. He ultimately said, Scott, don't do that. It's the dangers of putting that into your system only to lose weight. One, it is dangerous. Number two, it's temporary. So I wanted to share with you this story about what Rob Lowe, he's talking about, really kind of representing the thought in Hollywood about why so many of these actors and actresses are doing it and how he believes that they ought to stop. It's worth a good read. But when I asked my doctor about it, he just said, you're in good health. You only need to lose a few pounds, not as much as you need to lose, think you need to lose. These will help you lose weight, but you will feel lousy most likely with all kinds of side effects. But he said most notably is that you don't want to put your life at risk. Number two, the minute you stop taking these drugs, the desire for food comes right back. And again, there are going to be people who say they're the best ever, people who had great experience with them, people who have had lousy experience insofar as the side effects. But the idea of people using these drugs for weight loss is something I just want to bring to your attention in hopes that if you are doing it and you're not feeling well, that you'll really think about whether or not you should continue. Again, if you have diabetes, I don't know anything about that in terms of, you should do what your doctor says, obviously, but the idea of using diabetes drugs to lose weight and that be the only reason, I just think there's enough reason or research to say, wait a second. But because the side effects are brutal, and I don't want to feel that way. I want to lose the weight, but I don't want to feel the way those drugs supposedly make you feel. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention. This story is on Fox. Rob Lowe expresses concern with weight loss injection trend. And really the headline is now what? Because once you're done using them, the weight has the likelihood, the potential to come back. And that defeats the whole purpose. I tell you, in terms of weight loss, I had great success, and all I need to do is just do it again if I really want to lose the weight. And I do. I need to stop eating cookies, I can assure you of that. But I did the, I forget the name of it now. But it was, let's see, protein chips, protein bars, healthy snacks, a little bit of the solid food, for lunch, and when I say solid food, I mean basically staple kind of food, vegetables, that sort of thing. But I eat the same thing almost every night at home, and that is a taco salad that really leaves out all the fattening stuff. And I lost 30 pounds on it and would really, really recommend it. And I'm just going to drive me crazy that I can't remember the name, but my wife is watching. She can tell me what it was. That's a little loud. I'll turn the music down. This is the one area of this show that I need to get better at, obviously, and I will. So thank you, Doug, for letting me know. Let me just see if I have any comments here I need to catch. You're welcome. So anyway, I wanted you to. Oh, here's Jana. Jana. Oh, that's I already mentioned that one. Recognize that one. Optivia. That's Optivia. That's it. So thank you very much. I didn't see that, but yes, thank you, honey. That's my wife. Optivia. Uh, that again, if I'd put away crumble cookies and dessert spot cookies here in Waxahachie, I'd be much better off. Optivia is the program, and I within a matter of probably 6 or 7 months, I lost 30 pounds. And the weird thing is that I enjoyed being on it. It wasn't that big of a problem. I allowed myself on the weekends to have some fun with food, but by and large, during the week, I was strictly on it. So Optivia is something you ought to check it into. With respect to Ozempic, thankfully, because of my doctor and my wife, I decided not to pursue it, because you can get the versions of these things that are compounded and therefore less expensive. That's the other big problem with these things. They're ultra expensive. For a month, in some cases, is $1,000. But the compound version, there's a pharmacy here in Ellis County that sells it for $150 a month, and you can get it compounded and it still do the kind of job, and it's just a shot in your stomach. So I wanted to bring that to your attention and just ask you to be mindful of it. There's so much going on. Not a television show almost that you can watch where you don't see a commercial. So I wanted to just highlight that. Okay. So I believe those are the things I wanted to cover, kind of in a stack of stuff. I want to take the next, maybe 20 minutes to talk about the Brandon Beavers interviews. So we interviewed Brandon Beavers on February the 8th and February the 15th. So the last 2 Thursdays. And the whole purpose was to give Brandon a forum through which he could share, answer questions, discuss the case with his wife. For those of you watching who may not know about Missy Beaver, she was murdered in 2016 in a church about halfway between here and Midlothian, Texas, about 15 minutes, if that, away, on an early morning, on a Monday morning, early, still dark, in the foyer area of a church where she was setting up for a fitness session for a number of people. They usually did it in the parking lot. It was downpour that morning. She moved it to the inside the church. Inside the church, unbeknownst to her, there was somebody already in there dressed in police SWAT gear, who had been seen on camera. The video, if you've watched it, if you haven't, all you got to do is Missy Beaver's video and you'll see it. But it's showing a person in the church before Missy got there, and ultimately that person killed Missy. It's still unsolved. So 2 months from now, just right at 2 months from now, it'll be 8 years that this murder has been unsolved, despite being on video, despite being right here, despite, let's see, the FBI, sheriffs, Midlothian Police Department being on the job. It remains unsolved, and it's just hard to believe. So Brandon Beavers, the husband, Missy's husband, has not spoken to the media in all these years, or maybe a little bit here and there, but he was gracious enough to sit down with me for 2 interviews. We would have gone 3 if necessary, but we only needed 2. About 5, let's see, I only have about 4 hours, 3.5 to 4 hours long, and Brandon shared certain things. Now, he shared things that in some cases you had heard, things you hadn't heard. He shared things that frustrated some people. He shared things that enlightened some people. But I want you to know a few things. I'm going to read some of this so as to be able to show those things with you. But my intention was to allow you to see the man, hear the man, and at least maybe draw a better understanding of what's going on. Brandon and his dad, both of whom were suspects early on, have long been cleared by law enforcement, not just one law enforcement agency, but multiple agencies. And we all need to recognize that these are human beings who were blamed for one of the most heinous acts we could imagine. And both were cleared because they were out of town. There was no connection that was proven. that Brandon or his dad had to the murder, and it was my hope that you could come to understand that, and that you could ask Brandon questions. So we asked a lot of questions, and I think in many cases, some, not all of them, but in many cases, Brandon answered the questions. I want to read for you the echo chambers, an example of an echo chamber or two out there about the Missy Beavers murder, about Brandon, about our interview. And I'm going to share some that are not so good, and I want to share some that are just lousy, and I want to share some positives with you, because the narrative to date has been that Brandon either did it, knows somebody that did it, knows who did it but doesn't want to tell, and that he's still, this husband who doesn't act the way we believe he should act, or that many of you believe he should act, and doesn't answer the way you think he should answer, and because of that, you think he has something still to do with it. Many of you do. I don't. And so I want to just give you some examples. I do want to start this off by saying many people, I wouldn't say many, but enough have said, well, Scott Brooks and Brandon Beavers are friends, so Scott Brooks isn't going to ask Brandon whatever questions. This was not about necessarily me only asking questions. It was about to provide you a forum in which you could ask questions. Brandon and I have known each other since this happened. I didn't know Brandon before, and he didn't know me. We've seen each other maybe once or twice in this 7.5 years. We've spoken and visited maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times in those years. I've had communications with his family. But I wouldn't, if anyone that's watching this or has watched it or will weigh in on this, believes that we're friends to the point where I would either not ask questions or try to provide him an out for something, I don't know what it would be, you couldn't be more wrong. And that's the case with any of my friends. So, and I've lost friendships over that, and will continue probably, hope not, but the potential is always there. I'm endorsing somebody tomorrow that's an opponent of someone that used to be a friend. So chances are I'll lose a friend tomorrow, but I've got to do what's right and the common good. So that's just the nature of the job. So with respect to Brandon, there's nothing here, despite what, and you'll hear in just a second, despite what people have written and said, that would suggest Brandon was given any benefit of the doubt. This was an open forum, and we talked frankly. The things I'm about to read to you come from the spectrum of social media sites out there, including YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, although I'm not sure so much Twitch, but, and again, as I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, my emails, my cell phone, and the office phone messages have come in. I've taken some calls from people and spoken to them directly. And so hundreds of comments of feedback have come to my attention and shared with me. And you all can see them too. But I want to read some stuff to you here and just say some things about it. And if you want to weigh in, I'd love to see what you think about it, what your thoughts are, because some of you that are going to hear this maybe are the people who wrote some of these things. So let me just, the people here that have written them already are making themselves known because these are public social sites. My wife and I went to see a concert over the weekend out of town, and I came across this one from somebody named Tracy Guthrie, and it just hit me wrong. Rarely, if ever, do I respond to social media or publicly to comments that are made. I just, part of the job, take it as they come. I don't get into any arguments about it. I just let people have their say. That's what a forum is about, and I don't try to debate them or find myself in a never-ending mud wrestle. In this case, what was written just bothered me, and I decided I would respond to it. So this lady wrote, speaking of Brandon, he totally hired someone like his own dad. So imagine being Brandon or Randy Beavers and reading that and they've seen it all. But when it comes to, in this case, saying that a son hired his own dad to kill his wife, that's pretty diabolical. What's even more diabolical is to not have one shred of proof about that, not one shred of evidence, not anything but pure supposition, dreamt it up, and then be willing to go on a site and publicly state that. It bothers me. So I wrote back and said, what a sorry, lousy, hideous thing to say about another human being. Not only is there zero evidence of such a claim, both men have long been exonerated by multiple law enforcement agencies of anything to do with this horrible crime. You, speaking of this, Miss Tracy, and the person liking your comment because somebody went on and liked it, should take a long look in the mirror to grasp how offensive your assertions are. Then you should apologize to Brandon and Randy Beavers. This is so wrong, and I'm betting you can do better, much better. The response I got from Tracy was, blah, 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 the truth hurts. So I don't know how to have an argument with somebody that says blah, blah, blah. It's really not worth arguing about. But when somebody then says the truth hurts, what they have in their mind, which they got from an echo chamber, they call the truth. There's nothing truthful about it. I then wrote, I pity you, especially your hypocrisy, because if you go to that person's Facebook page, you'll see things mentioned about God and the like, and you just say to yourself, what's going on here? If that's what you espouse in your life, then why are you coming on a site like this? And I think this one was from YouTube, our YouTube channel, and saying something so hideous about another person. And then she responded with 4 M's and the letter K, something K. And then it was left at that. So I wanted to, that's an example of something that somebody picked up on an echo chamber and then just decided to blurt it out. Another person said in response to her, the person in the video looks remarkably similar to your stocky build. I think he was taking a shot at her. So it's hard for me to even read it again and fathom why somebody would say that about another human being with zero proof, zero evidence, zero knowledge, nothing close to the truth. Why she would say it about in this case the Beavers. Let me just read this to you. There's a person, and I'm just going to say his name. I don't know him. I don't know that I need to know him. But Scott Daly, who is across all these, or not all of them, but I've seen more than one place, said he's speaking of Brandon, he's got those arms crossed, and it's just easy to read his body language every damn time he speaks. Someone responded to that or jumped on in similar fashion saying, I do not like this man. His reactions and responses are just not lining up for me. So now we're going to say that somebody folding their arms, or because they don't speak the way I want them to speak or sit the way I want them to sit, it's got to somehow be guilty of this. And these two people, I'll read a couple more here in a minute, but these people just go on and on and on. Again, out of an echo chamber that just somehow confirms their bias. Another one is the way he just keeps working that gum, because Brandon was chewing some gum. The way he keeps working that gum hard, man, just makes him look so damn guilty, and he doesn't even realize it. So chewing gum in an interview about the death of his wife, the murder of his wife, means that he's guilty. That's frankly absurd. And I don't mean to be, I don't come on here to be hateful, but in some ways that's just stupid. If chewing gum in an interview were an indication of guilt, there'd be a lot of people, innocent people in America. It doesn't even have to be in an interview, but it just in a conversation that be found guilty of something. It's just incredible to me that people will write this stuff. This person, Beach Baby, says he 1,000,000% had everything to do with killing her. Based on what? There's no proof of that at all. Matter of fact, every bit of proof is the opposite. The person went on to say it wasn't FIL, and I should know what that is, but I don't. That was a cover for the other family member who did it for him. And FYI, just because FBI and the police department confirm he or anyone was out of town means crap. They were big deal. Big deal means absolutely nothing. It's not worded right, I don't think. But so doesn't matter what the proof says. Doesn't matter what evidence says. It doesn't mean crap. Imagine that being the litmus test for how we go about law and order in this country. Again, it's just another example. These guys are supposedly good friends, speaking of me and Brandon, but they don't discuss this case at all together or in any of the details. Holy crap, if that was my friend, I would know everything, or I would let my friend know everything. Again, Brandon and I haven't seen each other in years, and I haven't spoken to Brandon in the same amount of years about this case, largely because in the past 3 years, nothing's been going on, and it's been quiet. But Brandon is under no obligation to tell anybody anything he doesn't. And we're not close friends with respect to him just blurting out to me whatever he wants, the most intimate of details. He doesn't have to do that. But yet here's somebody who goes on and says, because we didn't have that kind of conversation, that somehow maybe something's being hidden. That's not all. I have been on a message board this is from Preci, a message board with a husband. Oh, that's it. I want to read that in just a second. Sorry. County Girl. The interviewer, who is also his friend, cherry picking the questions, and then the F word out of here. Not sure how to have a conversation with that kind of approach. But I read every question. I missed one, and the person who wrote it and asked me to ask Brandon told me I missed it the day after we wrote. I asked Brandon in what the answer was, and I shared that with the person who reminded me that I'd forgotten to ask the question. That question was there any life insurance on Missy? And Brandon said that's nobody's business but the family's, and I would tend to agree with that, although some folks in similar situation might tell you what there was, if any, insurance. But every other question that we received, we asked. There were a lot more questions that I didn't read, but those were duplicates. So you don't want me to read the same question again and again and again. We just took one question that may have had 20 duplicates, which some did, and we just read it once. So there wasn't any cherry picking, and so I just, man, you can do better, County Girl. You can do a lot better. So one of you all watching said, a person named Tammy, why is music in the background makes no sense. I would agree with you. We usually have music on in the background, but in this case we shouldn't have had it on, and that's my fault. So I acknowledge that, and we'll do better going forward. One last one, I think. Yeah, he's a weirdo, very odd behavior. I don't believe for a second their marriage was good. He didn't wait long to remarry either. That's also from County Girl. So I don't know what County Girl knows about Brandon Beavers. I don't know if she knows when anything about a second marriage. I don't know how she could, but to put it out there on public forums, it's a failure to be decent and good in this case about this whole matter. I wanted to read some good ones to you, though, because there are some. And as I told NBC5 the other night in the interview, and I want to tell you quickly in just a second how that went about, or how it came about, that really my desire, one of the desires, is to be able to show the human side of Brandon and his family, and that we as people ought to hopefully be able to show some compassion once we understand that these are grieving, hurting people that have been through hell and back, and because of their nothing to do with this crime and their grieving process, that we aren't we better suited? Aren't we better people to be able to say, here's a way of helping other people, of maybe trying a different approach, showing compassion, and giving Brandon a break and his family a break? Isn't that a better approach? And so when I talked to NBC5, that's what I kind of wanted to communicate, and I did. For those of you that saw that interview, uh, so here are a couple of positive things I wanted to share with you. I have been on a message board with a husband who killed his wife, and neither Brandon nor another person that she's referring to behave anything like him. Jeff West, I guess, was the person who had killed his wife, was nasty. He threatened people and was generally paranoid. Brandon Beavers displays no evidence of guilt. That was from Pre-C 1403. Brooklyn 2576 says, thank you, Scott, for sharing the whole interview, and thank you, Brandon, for your time. Sending you and your family support and love. Jacqueline says, thank you, Brandon, for your precious time. Shadowbox, thank you for this. Sending love to Brandon and the girls. Whitey Fisk, the father-in-law spent half of every year traveling in an RV. Brandon went on that same fishing trip every year at the same time. Get off of it already. If they did, they'd have been caught by now. Tamra says, Brandon, thank you for telling your story. I hope everyone will have some clarification. User, and then a bunch of letters and numbers, says, I totally understand that everyone reacts to grief in different ways. I lost my son very unexpectedly. While others around me may not have understood, I turned to my new career and staying busy to help me. Yes, I still struggle. After all, we have no choice but to continue to live our lives. God bless the Beavers family. So many ridiculous rumors. There are comments coming in I want to read in just a second. So let me just finish this. Cell Song says, Brandon, if you ever read this, there are millions of us that have never suspected you in all of this. I wish you and your daughters peace. I do believe there is one person of interest that was the reason Missy died. I'm praying for justice in this lifetime. And the last one I want to read to you says, I understand grief, complex grief, and I can say from my own experience that it is real. How he's behaved is completely normal. His anger at the public, internet sleuths, and others in general are also normal. Until you have been in his shoes, you will continue to think you are correct in saying he's guilty. He also knows more than he is willing to admit, not because he's hiding to protect himself, but because he, along with law enforcement, already knows who killed Missy. He refuses to let anyone jeopardize the case. Justice will prevail. Whether or not Brandon knows who may have killed Missy, I don't know. He did say that he doesn't know, but I appreciate the sentiment. So I just wanted to share those things with you. There are sets of echo chambers going on here. Those who believe Brandon had something to do with it and that he's guilty, or that he knows somebody that did it, or the person that did it, or that he's connected to it. That's one echo chamber. And all that goes on there is this confirmation bias where that's right. Preach it. Let's keep talking, and let's build ourselves up into a crescendo of whatever frenzy, such that we walk away believing absolutely, despite all the evidence that says it wasn't Brandon, that Brandon did it. That's awful. It's awful. There's another echo chamber that says that's full of compassion, and that chamber doesn't necessarily feed off of one another, but it basically, they all are like-minded insofar as they want to be in a place that has other people who've come to a place of compassion, and as a result are reaching out to Brandon and his family with that compassion. So those are interesting dichotomies of echo chambers, but the first one is what's going on in America. Happens in politics, happens in crime, happens in whatever, sports, you name it. But here we have echo chambers that are just building in frenzies and going after the Beavers family. Here's what I would say. This is almost 8 years old. These same things that are being said right now, because these are all current statements, were said 6.5 years ago, 7 years ago. And it would seem to me that if we keep doing and saying the same things about this case and no progress is being made, and you are parts of groups that want to make progress, then change your approach. Well, the old definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again, believing that you'll have a different outcome. That's insanity. So let's think about, even if you have this obsession with, and some of these I just read to you, the people are obsessed with cruelty, and in this case aimed at Brandon. I would say it's not gotten you anywhere in 6.5 years. It's not going to get you anywhere because he didn't do it, didn't have anything to do with it. Same with Mr. Beavers. So what's the point of continuing other than the echo chamber that keeps it going? I want to make mention about the True Crime Broads podcast. That would be Renee and Crystal. I've had conversations with them, both verbal and messaging, text, that sort of thing. They are doing work that I think is good, and it doesn't mean that everything that's going to be written there, just like on our son's YouTube page or our Facebook page or Instagram, is good. It is a forum in which people can express their opinions. True Crime Broads have spent 6 years, maybe a little longer, dedicated to trying to help solve this case. I don't hold them responsible for anything that's said on their site, their page. Just like, somebody writes something. I read some pretty nasty stuff just now that was on our pages. That's not how we feel, but it's a forum committed to allowing people to express their opinions. So to Renee and Crystal, I just keep doing your thing, and I believe, based on talking to both of you guys, that you do it with the right heart and the right frame of mind and the right objectives, and just keep marching, as I mentioned to you earlier today. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your interest in Sunspot Live. Let me read a couple of comments here, questions. Mary says, Brandon said no one was cleared, then said he was cleared 3 months later. He said he absolutely wasn't following Facebook pages, then said he is following them intently. He lied multiple times. Clarify his lies. Those podcasts were cute question and answer. People have a right to their opinions. Of course, people have the right to opinions, but if your opinion is based on nonsense, then I have every opportunity to call it out. I do think that Brandon described some things that, by example, the clearing some, people being cleared. Brandon said no one's ever cleared, yet Brandon and his dad and others have been cleared. And so, this once a suspect, always a suspect. I'm not sure I buy into that. Because if you didn't do something, you didn't do it. If you did do it, you did do it. It's that simple. So, but the idea is that, as this lady, what was her name, Mary says, Brandon lied multiple times. I don't, again, there are ways of looking at this interview and saying he crossed his arms, so he must be guilty. He contradicted himself, so he must be guilty. He chewed gum, so he must be guilty. People have a right to their opinions, but if your opinion is not based on facts, then you're gonna need to be held to account, and that's all I'm saying. No one knows. The people saying that because he crossed his arms, he's guilty. That's ridiculous on every level. So, let me see if I missed any more here. People are responding back to one another. Okay, someone says they want to share some things privately. Yes, please do. I've gotten lots of private messages that I appreciate. I also want to tell you that I want to mention someone. Last name is Bina. Their granddaughter made a comment. She didn't know it was going to appear, so I think it was just a young person goofing around, but it did appear, and the grandmother, I don't recall her name, but the grandmother was Christy, I think was the name, was mortified by it and was really apologetic, really felt bad that night, last Thursday night. On Friday, I got a call from the grandfather, super nice gentleman, very professional, very respectful, wanted me to know that he and his wife were sorry, that they had talked to their granddaughter about it, and they wanted me to tell Brandon as well. So I've told Brandon of their apology, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate you reaching out and sharing your feelings and your apologies with me. So let me make sure I don't have anybody else on here that we need to check. So many of you are here, and I appreciate you being here. I really do. Yeah, so Nadine writes, I appreciate Governor Abbott's stance on not allowing transgenders in sports. Amen to that. Transgenders, it doesn't matter to me what they're transitioning to. Women's sports got to be protected from biological males in women's sports, period. And that's just the way I see it, and I'm going to continue to harp on it. And if I need to make it a bigger deal, then I certainly will. So Nadine, thank you for that. Doug says, I agree, that's messed up, man. Thank you so much. Renee joined. NS Glass joined. Thank you all so much. Another comment, just because you're free to say whatever you want doesn't mean you should. Amen to that. So again, if you have an opinion, and I love opinionated people, that's what I do for a living, and it comes natural, unfortunately, in some cases, but it just comes natural. But I want to be around people who have opinions. I want to be around people who make me think critically. I want to be around people who challenge me. But if you're not gonna use the truth to form your opinion, then I'm gonna call that out, and that's what this is about. These people that I shared with you, particularly those that continue to do it, when you don't know anything about a family and you say, Brandon hired his dad to kill his wife, you ought to be ashamed, frankly. And unfortunately, that person wasn't, but that's shameful. So we've got a giveaway coming up, not this Thursday, but next Thursday, for 2 tickets to see Michael Martin Murphey, 2 front row tickets in one of the coolest theaters in the state of Texas. And I'm excited to be able to give that away. Let me make sure what else I wanted to share with you today. Give me 1 second here. We did give away 2 Rangers tickets to a gentleman who I think is excited to be able to go see that game. He chose the game later in the summer, and we'll have a lot of fun. I bought him tickets just as the way we'll do it for any tickets. If I were buying them for myself, that's what I want to buy for you. So the front row seats at Michael Martin Murphey, that's where I would want to be. The tickets we bought for the gentleman who won the Rangers tickets, that's where we would want to be. So I'm not going to buy tickets where you're way up in nosebleed, can hardly see the field, or that you're at a concert venue and you can't see the performers or hear the music well. That's not going to work. So all of our tickets are going to be top notch. All right. So again, our objective here is to be a beast for good in this world, in this society, in our own little communities, and that's what my drive is for Waxahachie, Texas. I want to leave you with a quote, and then I want to tell you, well, let me do it opposite. On this Thursday, our guest is Mayor of Waxahachie, David Hill. David will be here for the full hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, to answer any questions you may have about Waxahachie. Any question. So if you've got a question about Waxahachie and you want to know the answer, bring it on Thursday, and I'll be sure to ask the mayor so that he can provide an answer straight from the horse's mouth. Should there not be that many questions, then David, the mayor, and I will talk about the various things going on in Waxahachie, exciting things. So, because there are plenty. All right, so the mayor on Thursday, and then on Thursday or next Tuesday, I'll announce who next week's guest is. So with that, I wanted to close with this quote. And this is fitting, I think, when the whole world is running towards a cliff, he who is running in the opposite direction appears to have lost his mind. So be the one, in this case, that appears to have lost his mind, because the society is headed for a cliff. And I'm asking you to join me in being the one running in the opposite direction. So with that, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll continue to get better at it and have more fun. more tickets to give away, but it's all dependent upon your participation. And I am grateful for everyone that has been here today. So with that, I'll see you today's Tuesday. I'll see you Thursday with the mayor. Okay. So long. Let me get to my. Yeah, I don't know. The music, I think, just went. We just went through the playlist. Yeah, it stopped on me. That's over. Let me turn these off. Stop streaming.